Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 31. 3 months ago, I was just a contractor fixing up a rich woman's home office. Then one night she stood outside a hotel in a gown her husband was supposed to see her in, looked me in the eye, and whispered, "Pretend to be my husband for one night." I could still smell her perfume on my jacket 2 weeks later when she finally texted me back. The worst part? When we danced in front of 300 people, she said, "I forgot what this felt like, being on someone's mind." If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments. Because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I got the call on a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed while I was still half asleep. Liam's coffee machine hissing in the kitchen, the old fridge humming like it always did. I almost didn't pick up. But the area code was local, and I needed work. The voice on the other end belonged to a woman named Claire. She said she was calling on behalf of a client in Oakwood Estates, one of those gated communities where the houses have names instead of just numbers. Her client needed a home office renovated. Good budget. Timeline flexible. I said yes before she even finished. I'd been scraping by for months. Small jobs, patch and paint rentals, replacing cabinet hinges for landlords who didn't want to spend real money. My last big project fell through when the client's financing didn't come through, and I'd been living off what I had saved, which wasn't much. Liam kept saying I should get a real job. He meant it as a joke, but I could hear the concern underneath. He tended bar 4 nights a week and covered more than his share of rent. I owed him. So when Claire said the address and mentioned the client's name, Danica Cole, I wrote it down carefully, like it was a contract I couldn't afford to lose. Oakwood Estates didn't feel real. The gate had a call box and a guard who checked my name against a clipboard. Twice. He made me repeat my license plate number while he typed it into a tablet, then waved me through like he was doing me a favor. The streets inside were wide and clean. No potholes, no trash cans sitting out. Just brick mailboxes and young trees planted in perfect rows, their leaves too green to be natural. I found the address at the end of a cul-de-sac. The house was all glass and pale stone, 2 stories, with a circular driveway and landscaping that looked like someone trimmed it with scissors. My truck, dented, paint fading on the hood, felt like an apology sitting in front of it. A housekeeper let me in. The foyer had marble floors. Actual marble. There was a chandelier hanging from the ceiling that probably cost more than my truck, and art on the walls that I didn't understand but knew I wasn't supposed to touch. She led me through a hallway into what I assumed was the office. And that's when I saw her. Danica Cole stood by the window, looking at something on her phone. She was tall, maybe 5'8". Black. Mid-40s, I guessed, though she carried it in a way that made age feel irrelevant. She wore dark jeans and a cream-colored blouse, sleeves rolled to her elbows, no jewelry except a wedding band that caught the light when she moved. She looked up when I walked in. "You must be Ethan." Her voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of voice that made you stand up straighter without realizing it. I nodded, shook her hand. Her grip was firm but not aggressive, her palm cool against mine. "Thanks for coming on short notice," she said. "I know Claire didn't give you much to go on." "It's no problem," I said. "I appreciate the opportunity." She smiled, just a little, like she'd heard that line before. Then she walked me through the room. The office was half finished. Someone had started the project and abandoned it. Old built-in shelves had been torn out, leaving holes in the drywall. The floor was scuffed. There were paint samples taped to the walls in colors that didn't match anything. Danica explained what she wanted. Something warmer, more functional. She gestured to a mood board leaning against the desk. Images of wood tones, soft lighting, clean lines. I took notes, asked questions about dimensions, about whether she wanted open shelving or closed cabinets, about power outlets and lighting fixtures. She answered everything clearly, thoughtfully, like she'd been thinking about this for a long time. At one point, she paused and looked around the room. "I spend a lot of time in here," she said quietly. "I want it to feel less like a showroom." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Before I left, I walked through the house to check measurements for a materials list. The dining room table was set for 2. Expensive plates, folded linen napkins, wine glasses catching the afternoon light. No one was sitting there. I didn't ask. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table sketching layouts. Liam leaned over my shoulder, coffee in hand, and whistled low. "That's the rich people job?" "Yeah." "She hot?" I didn't look up. "She's a client." "That's not a no." I kept drawing. But yeah, she was. I came back 2 days later with samples and a proposal. Danica answered the door herself this time, barefoot, hair pulled back in a loose bun. She looked different, more relaxed. Or maybe just tired. She offered me sparkling water from a glass bottle I'd never heard of, and we sat at the kitchen island going over the designs. She asked good questions. She wanted to know why I recommended certain materials, why I thought a particular layout would work better than another. I explained my process, how I thought about flow, about light, about making a space feel lived in instead of staged. She listened. Really listened. Not the way clients usually do, where they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can make a decision. She asked follow-ups. She made notes. She leaned forward when I described how the shelves would look once they were stained. At some point, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. Her face changed. Just for a second. Then she picked it up, read the message, and set it back down. "My husband," she said. "He's stuck in surgery. We were supposed to have lunch." "I'm sorry," I said. She shrugged. "It happens." But the way she said it, it didn't sound like a one-time thing. I started demo work the following week. The house was always quiet. The housekeeper came and went. Danica worked from home most days, usually in the kitchen or on the back patio with her laptop. Sometimes she'd wander into the office to check on progress, ask how things were going, or just stand there for a minute like she was deciding whether to say something. We talked, not about anything heavy at first, just small things. She asked where I grew up. I told her about the neighborhood I came from, about starting in construction at 18 because I couldn't afford college. She asked if I'd always wanted to do this kind of work. I told her the truth, that I liked fixing things, that I liked the idea of taking something broken and making it whole again. She smiled at that. Then she asked about the tan line on my ring finger. I hesitated, but something about the way she asked, not nosy, just curious, made me answer honestly. "I was engaged," I said. "It didn't work out. I'm sorry. It's fine. We wanted different things." She looked at me for a long moment. "That's the polite version, isn't it?" I laughed. "Yeah. What's the real version?" I set down my drill. She wanted someone with a steadier income, someone who didn't come home covered in sawdust, someone who could give her the life she saw on Instagram. Danica didn't say anything right away. Then, "I hope she finds that." There was something in her voice, not pity, something else. Understanding, maybe. Mrs. Ellison showed up on the 3rd day. She lived across the street, late 60s, white hair, expensive athleisure, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. She knocked on the door with a tin of cookies, said she'd baked too many, and stood in the entryway long enough to make it clear she was fishing for information. "I don't see Dr. Cole's car much these days," she said to Danica, her tone light but pointed. "Busy season at the hospital?" "Always," Danica said smoothly. Mrs. Ellison's eyes drifted to me. "And you're the contractor?" "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "Well, it's nice to see someone putting care into this house. It's been so quiet lately." After she left, Danica let out a long breath. "She lives for this," she muttered. "Watching, asking questions, keeping score." I didn't know what to say to that, so I went back to work. But I filed it away. I met Marcus Cole on a Thursday evening. I was finishing up for the day when I heard the garage door open. A car engine. Then footsteps. He walked into the kitchen still wearing scrubs under a designer jacket. Tall, black, mid-40s, the kind of handsome that came with money and good genes. Danica introduced us. "This is Ethan. He's renovating the office." Marcus shook my hand. Firm grip, brief eye contact. "Good to meet you," he said. Then, to Danica, "We need to talk about the gala schedule." "Now?" "I've got 10 minutes before I need to call the hospital back." He pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Danica's jaw tightened. Just barely. I packed up my tools quickly. Quietly. I didn't want to be in the room for whatever was about to happen. As I carried my toolbox toward the door, I heard Marcus's voice, low and clipped. "I'm not canceling on you. I'm just saying I might need to leave early." "Marcus, you're being honored. You can't leave your own event early." "I'll see what I can move around." I kept walking. I drove home with the windows down, trying to shake the tension I'd just witnessed. But I kept thinking about the way Danica's shoulders had gone rigid, the way her voice had stayed level even though I could hear the frustration underneath, the way Marcus had looked at her like she was one more item on his to-do list. A week later, Danica's sister showed up. Tasha Green. Younger than Danica by a few years. Same elegance, but with sharper edges. She was an event planner, and she moved through the house like she owned it, talking fast into her phone about seating charts and donor lists. When she saw me, she paused mid-sentence. "Who's this?" "The contractor," Danica said. "Ethan, this is my sister Tasha." Tasha looked me up and down, smiled. "Cute contractor?" Danica rolled her eyes. "Don't. I'm just saying." They disappeared into another room, and I heard bits of their conversation through the walls. Something about the gala, about how important it was, about how Danica and Marcus needed to show up together this year because of some new hospital wing being named after him. I kept working, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd overheard. That night, back at my apartment, I looked up the gala online. There were photos from previous years, Danica in gowns, Marcus in tuxedos, both of them smiling, both of them looking like the kind of couple you see in magazines. But I kept thinking about the untouched plates on the dining room table, the way she flinched when her phone buzzed, the way she stood at the kitchen sink, staring at nothing. The office was coming together. I installed new shelves, sanded and stained the wood, patched the drywall, and started the first coat of paint. Danica spent more time in the room now. Sometimes she'd sit at her desk while I worked, typing emails or reviewing documents. Other times she'd just watch. One afternoon, I accidentally tipped over a paint can. It splashed onto the drop cloth and a corner of the baseboard. I cursed under my breath, and Danica laughed, really laughed for the first time since I'd met her. She grabbed a rag and knelt beside me to help clean it up. Our hands brushed, just once. But I felt it. We talked more after that. She told me about her life before Marcus, about working in a small gallery, about doing everything herself, about loving the chaos of it. I told her about my dad, about how he'd worked construction his whole life, how he'd taught me that every crack in a wall was just a symptom of something deeper. She smiled at that. You sound like him. I hope so. We sat there in the half-finished office, paint fumes and sunlight, and for a moment it felt easy. Then her phone buzzed, a reminder about the gala. She looked at it and sighed. I wish I could send a stand-in, she said. I laughed. That would be a hell of a story. She didn't laugh back. The day of the gala, I wasn't supposed to be there. I had a quick visit scheduled, just to adjust some shelving before the paint dried. I told myself I'd be in and out in an hour. But when I arrived, the house felt different. There were flowers everywhere. A garment bag hanging near the stairs. The housekeeper moving quickly, setting things in order. I walked into the office and froze. Danica stood by the window in a floor-length gown, deep blue, elegant, her hair styled, makeup perfect. She looked breathtaking. Sorry, I said. I didn't realize you'd be getting ready. She turned, smiled. It's fine. I needed to practice my speech anyway. She held up note cards. I went back to work, but I couldn't stop glancing at her. The way the fabric moved when she paced. The way her hands shook just slightly as she read her lines. Then her phone rang. She stepped into the hall. I heard her voice, tight, controlled. You're not serious. Marcus, it's tonight. You promised. A long silence. Then, fine. I'll figure it out. When she came back, her face was pale. He can't make it, she said quietly. Emergency surgery. I'm sorry. She tried to smile. Failed. It's fine. I'll go alone. I've done it before. But her hands were shaking. She tried to fasten her bracelet. Couldn't. I stepped forward without thinking. Let me. She held out her wrist. I clasped the bracelet carefully, my fingers brushing her pulse point. She didn't pull away. The driver called. He'd be late. Danica stood in the entryway, clutch in hand, staring at the door like it was the edge of a cliff. Would you... She hesitated. Would you ride with me? Just to drop me off? So I don't walk in alone? I should have said no. I should have made an excuse. But I didn't. Yeah, I said. Of course. We took my truck. She sat in the passenger seat, gown carefully tucked, clutch on her lap. The drive was quiet. City lights reflected in her window. We pulled up across from the hotel. Bright lights, couples in formal wear stepping out of cars. Danica's breathing quickened. They're going to ask where he is, she whispered. They're going to ask, and I don't know what to say. I looked at her. She looked back, and then she said it. Pretend to be my husband for one night. My heart stopped. And tomorrow, I managed. We go back to strangers? She nodded. But neither of us believed it. We rehearsed in the truck. Basic facts, where Marcus went to medical school, how they met, little stories she fed me in careful detail. I tried to memorize it all, but mostly I just watched her lips move and wondered what the hell I was doing. She reached over and straightened my borrowed tie, the one I kept in my back seat for client meetings. Her fingers lingered at my collar. You don't have to do this, she said, but her eyes were begging me to. We stepped out together. The hotel entrance was bright, too bright. Staff in uniforms, a photographer with a camera, donors milling around in clusters. Someone called out, Dr. Cole, Mrs. Cole. Danica's hand found mine. I placed my other hand on the small of her back, like I'd seen Marcus do in those photos online, and we walked forward. The photographer gestured us toward a backdrop with the hospital logo. We posed, her body against mine, my hand steady on her waist. Both of us smiling like we'd done this 1,000 times. The flashbulbs popped. And just like that, I became someone else. Inside, the ballroom was massive. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, a stage at the far end, piano music drifting through the crowd. A volunteer handed me a name tag. Dr. Marcus Cole. I stared at it. Danica's hand squeezed mine. I pinned it to my lapel. We were seated at a table near the front. Donors greeted us, shook my hand, called me doctor, thanked me for my incredible work. I smiled, nodded, echoed safe phrases Danica had fed me earlier. A man named Mr. Alder sat beside me, late 60s, expensive suit. He started asking about surgical techniques, about patient outcomes, about the new wing. I deflected. It's really about the team, I said. The nurses, the residents. I just get my name on the door. He laughed, clapped me on the back. Danica watched from across the table, her eyes wide with something between relief and disbelief. Dinner was served. I barely tasted it. People kept approaching, shaking my hand, asking questions I didn't know how to answer. But Danica was there, beside me, filling in gaps, redirecting conversations, creating little private pockets where only we existed. Under the table, her knee brushed mine. I didn't move away. Halfway through dessert, the MC took the stage. He welcomed everyone, thanked the donors. Then he said the words that made my stomach drop. And now I'd like to invite Dr. and Mrs. Cole to the stage to say a few words. Applause filled the room. Danica's hand found mine under the table, her nails dug into my palm. We stood together. The stage lights were blinding. The MC handed me the microphone. I looked out at the crowd. 100 faces. Maybe more. I opened my mouth, and I didn't talk about surgeries or techniques or anything Marcus would have said. I talked about the only thing I knew. I'm not good with speeches, I started. But I know what it's like to sit in a hospital waiting room, to watch the clock, to wonder if the people on the other side of those doors care as much as you do. The room went quiet. This wing, it's not about me. It's about giving families a space where hope feels possible, where time doesn't move so slow, where someone remembers that the people waiting are just as scared as the people in the beds. I paused. So, thank you for believing in that. Applause erupted. I handed the microphone back and stepped down, legs shaking. Danica followed, her eyes shining. In the hallway outside the ballroom, she stopped me. That was... Her voice cracked. That's the kind of thing I wish he believed. I didn't know what to say. She looked up at me. Really looked. He cares about the journals, the conferences, the accolades, but the people in the waiting rooms? She shook her head. I don't think he sees them anymore. I wanted to touch her face, to tell her it wasn't her fault. But a staff member rounded the corner. Dr. Cole? We both jumped. The staffer just asked if we needed anything, then walked away. Danica let out a shaky breath. We should get back. Inside, a new song started. A slow one. A donor appeared beside us, grinning. We have to see the famous Coles dance at least once tonight. Danica's eyes met mine. And we walked to the dance floor. I placed one hand at her waist. She rested hers on my shoulder. We moved slowly, carefully. The room blurred around us. You're good at this, she whispered. At lying? At being here. I looked down at her. So are you. She smiled. Sad. I've had practice. We swayed in silence for a moment. Then she said, so quietly, I almost missed it. I forgot what this felt like. What? Being on someone's mind. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. I leaned in, just an inch. Her phone buzzed between us. The screen lit up. Marcus. She stiffened, pulled back, declined the call without looking at it. The song ended. We stood there, hands still touching, the space between us charged with everything we couldn't say. Later, we escaped to a balcony. City lights stretched out below us. The sounds of the gala muffled behind the glass doors. Danica leaned against the railing. "I'm tired," she said quietly. "Of explaining his absences, of saying surgery ran late when I don't even know if it's true." I stepped beside her. "Are you happy?" She didn't answer right away. "I'm committed." "That's not the same thing." "No," she whispered. "It's not." She reached up to straighten my tie. Her fingers lingered at my collar. I almost leaned down. The balcony door opened. Tasha stepped out. Her eyes went from Danica's hand on my chest to my face to the name tag on my lapel. "Well," she said lightly, "this is cozy." Danica dropped her hand. "Tasha, I didn't know you were coming." "Last-minute decision." Tasha's smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked at me. "I don't think we've met properly. I'm Danica's sister." "Ethan," I said. "Ethan." She drew out the name. "Funny, I don't remember Marcus having a brother named Ethan." Danica's face went pale. Marcus is..." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "Where is my dear brother-in-law anyway?" "Surgery," Danica said quickly. "Emergency." "Right." Tasha's gaze swept over us. "So you brought a friend?" "He's helping me," Danica said. "I can see that." The silence stretched, then Tasha smiled again. Sharp. "What month was it you two went to Paris for your anniversary?" My heart stopped. I forced myself to remember the details Danica had fed me earlier. "June," I said. Tasha's eyes narrowed. "Funny, I could have sworn it was May." "June of 2019, Danica cut in. "You're thinking of the trip to Napa? That was May." Tasha studied us both. Then she shrugged. "My mistake." But I knew she didn't believe us. We went back inside. Danica pulled me toward the bar, voice low. She knows something's wrong." "What do we do?" "Just stay close. Smile. We're almost through this." The MC announced another toast. Everyone raised their glasses. Danica's phone buzzed in her clutch. FaceTime. Marcus. She stared at the screen. Every donor at our table was looking at us. Cameras were pointed our way. The MC was literally thanking Dr. Cole for his leadership. Danica declined the call, shoved the phone deeper into her bag. Across the table, Tasha's eyes locked on mine. She'd seen everything. The rest of the night passed in a blur. More speeches, more handshakes, more lies. By the time we left, my face hurt from smiling. We skipped the car service, took my truck instead. The drive was quiet at first. City lights flashing past, the radio low. Then Danica spoke. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this." "You didn't drag me. I said yes." "Still." She looked out the window. "Tasha's going to tell Marcus. Maybe not tonight, but soon." "What happens then?" She didn't answer. We pulled up to her house. The porch light was on. Warm, inviting. No other cars in the driveway. We sat there for a moment. Then she turned to me. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. For being there." I wanted to say so many things. Instead, I just nodded. We got out together, walked to her door under that circle of light. I didn't plan to hug her, but she stepped into my arms, and I held her. She clung back. Tight, her face against my shoulder. I smelled her perfume, felt her heartbeat. We stood there too long. When she pulled back, we were inches apart. Her eyes searched mine. I leaned in. A flashlight beam swept across the yard. Security guard, making rounds. Danica stepped back like I'd burned her. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "everything goes back to normal, okay?" I nodded. She disappeared inside. The door clicked shut. I walked back to my truck, the porch light burning behind me. The next morning I woke up with her perfume still on my jacket. I checked my phone. Missed call. Unknown number. A voicemail from Marcus's office. The renovation was being paused. Budget adjustments. They'd be in touch. I sat there in my truck, halfway to the mansion, and realized what had happened. I texted Danica. Got a call from the office. Everything okay? No response. Hours passed. Then a message from an unknown number. Tasha. My sister needs space. Don't come back here. Please respect that. I tried to focus on other jobs. Patching drywall in a rental, replacing a faucet, installing shelves in someone's garage. But every afternoon I found myself driving past Oakwood Estates. I never went in, just slowed near the gate, watched cars come and go, wondered which nights Marcus's car was there, which nights it wasn't. Weeks passed. Liam set me up on a date with a woman from the bar. Jenna, nice, pretty, easy to talk to. But halfway through dinner, I realized I was checking my phone too often. Comparing her laugh to Danica's, wondering if she'd ever stand at a kitchen sink staring at nothing. The date ended politely. I drove home alone. It was raining that night. The wipers squeaked. The city looked blurred. Instead of going straight home, I looped past the gated community again. The street was dark except for one window glowing in Danica's house. The office. Our office. Later, parked outside my building, I started cleaning out my truck. Fast food bags, old receipts, a crumpled lottery ticket. I reached under the passenger seat. My fingers brushed something soft. I pulled out a silk scarf. Blue. Expensive. The one Danica had worn over her shoulders the night of the gala. I sat there in the dark, rain drumming on the roof, the scarf draped across my lap. She'd ridden home with me, left this behind. Never asked for it back. That night, I brought it upstairs, laid it on my kitchen table. As I folded it, something small slipped out. A note. Thick cream stationery, hotel letterhead, her handwriting. Strangers don't keep souvenirs. I read it 5 times, trying to decode the message. Was it permission? A goodbye? A confession? I picked up my phone, opened a message to her number, typed, deleted, typed again. The next day, I couldn't focus on work. I measured the same doorway twice, forgot where I put my tools, took an early lunch, sat in my truck staring at the photo I'd taken of the scarf and note. Hours passed. That night, sitting on my bed in the dark, I finally typed a message. Found this under my passenger seat. Do you want it back? Or should I pretend it was never yours? I hovered over send. Then I hit it. The read receipt didn't come right. Away. I lay there, phone on my chest, staring at the ceiling, waiting. The next morning there was a reply, sent at 2:17 a.m. Tomorrow 6 p.m., coffee shop on 9th. Just coffee, just talking. No emoji, no extra words. I arrived early. The coffee shop was small, independent, mismatched chairs, the hiss of steaming milk. I picked a corner table facing the door. At exactly 6 p.m., she walked in. Danica looked different. Jeans, a sweater, minimal makeup, younger, but tired. We hugged awkwardly, then sat. We talked about safe things first. The office, the hospital, small updates. Then, slowly, we worked toward the gala. I panicked, she said quietly. After that night, Tasha was furious. She said I was playing with fire. That one rumor could destroy everything. I understand. Do you? She looked up. Because I'm not sure I do. I asked why she'd reached out. She stared into her coffee. Finding the scarf, knowing you had it, I couldn't keep pretending you were just my contractor. And now? She hesitated. I'm here. We set rules. No hotels, No late nights at her house, no boundary crossing beyond friendly gestures, coffee, occasional texts, maybe finishing the office when things cooled down. Everything had to be explainable if someone saw us. I agreed, even though I knew my feelings didn't fit inside those lines. She told me about the porch light, how flicking it on-off was a nervous habit from childhood, a signal to her mother, to Tasha. I'm here. I'm not okay. I admitted I'd driven past her street, that I'd noticed. She looked at me for a long moment. It wasn't meant for you, she whispered. I know. But neither of us looked away. As we stood to leave, I handed her the scarf. Our fingers brushed, lingered, then let go. Outside, under the cafe awning, we hugged again. Brief, careful. Then walked opposite directions. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Her. Strangers wouldn't say thank you. Me. Good thing we're not strangers. Weeks passed. We met for coffee. Once every week or two. Different spots. Never a pattern. We texted. About small things. Memes, memories, childhood stories. It felt innocent. It wasn't. One afternoon, Mrs. Ellison saw us leaving a cafe. She paused. Surprised, Danica introduced me as someone helping with a foundation project. Mrs. Ellison smiled, but her eyes lingered too long. Another day, it rained. We stood under a cafe awning, saying goodbye. Danica stepped out into the drizzle. I reached for her elbow, pulled her back under cover, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes. Didn't pull away. When she finally stepped back, her voice was barely audible. We shouldn't, but thank you. She walked away. I stood there in the rain, watching her disappear. That night, I sat at my desk, recording into my phone, talking about how something as small as a forehead kiss can feel like crossing a continent when you're not supposed to cross anything at all. The next few days were quiet. We texted carefully. About work, about coffee, about nothing that mattered. But underneath, there was an understanding. We'd stepped closer to a line, and neither of us knew how to step back. One late afternoon, I was driving home from a job across town. Traffic diverted me, onto the familiar route, past the gated community. I glanced toward her street. The porch light flicked on, off, on again, her signal. My phone buzzed. Her. You free for coffee, stranger? I smiled, turned my truck toward our side of town, away from her house, toward the cafe. I parked, stepped out into the cool evening air, and I realized something. We never said we'd run away together, never promised anything we couldn't keep. We just stopped pretending we were strangers. I walked toward the cafe door. Somewhere across town, her porch light burned quietly on. And I knew, whatever this was, whatever we were building in stolen hours and careful touches, it wasn't over. Maybe it never would be.